Here are the answers for the section 3-4 assignment, beginning with page 93 oral. We're asked to give the point-slope form of the equation. There's a formula for that. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. In question 1, we are given a point that is on a line. The coordinates of that point are the x1 and the y1 in the point-slope formula. We're also given the slope of the line. To describe how it's angled on the paper, we're told m equals 1. The letter m is in the point-slope formula. So let's substitute these three values into the proper spots in the formula. Y minus, for y1, fill in 1. For m, fill in 1. And then x minus, for x1, fill in 1. This equation is in a format called point-slope form. It describes how a line is positioned on a graph. And it's a useful form because if we know what the numbers in the different positions mean, it tells us information about the graph. The number here in front of the parentheses is telling us the slope of the line. The number here after the minus sign next to x is telling us the x-coordinate of a point, and this number here is telling us the y-coordinate of a point on the line. Number 3, let's follow our formula and fill in the values. This is x1 and y1, and here's the m. So we have y minus, now fill in y1, equals, fill in m. And then in parentheses, x minus, fill in x1. Here is the point-slope formula for a line given this beginning information. Number 5, the same thing. Let's identify what's x1 and y1. And notice we also know a value for m. So here comes the point-slope form. Y minus, fill in y1, equals, fill in the m. And then in parentheses it goes x minus, and then fill in the x sub 1. Here's the point-slope form equation for a line that goes through the point 1, 4 and has a slope of -1/2. Number 11, we're given an equation and asked to find the slope and to find the y-intercept. The equation that we're given is in a certain format that fits the pattern ax plus by equals to c, where in our equation the value of the a is 2, the value of the b is 1, and the value of the c is 7. We know from a previous lesson that if we change this form into slope-intercept form, it'll be simpler to find the slope and the y-intercept. Let's subtract 2x from both sides. We get y equals -2x plus 7. Now the number in front of x is the slope, and the number on the end is the y-intercept. So we have answered the question. The slope is the -2. The y-intercept is the 7. Number 13, let's use that same technique. Transform the equation so that the letter y is alone. First, add the x term to the other side. 2y equals x plus 12. Then divide by 2. So y equals x divided by 2 plus 12 divided by 2. Let's rewrite this. X divided by 2 is the same thing as half of x. In this way, there's a number in front of the x which will help us to get the slope. And the constant turns out to be 6. Now we can find the slope. It's a half. And we can find the y-intercept. It's the 6. You know how we've been using m for the slope? Instead of writing y-intercept, you can use the letter b to mean the y-intercept. It's a little bit faster to write. Number 19. This time we're asked to give an equation for a line, and we're told some information about the line. We are given its slope, and we are given the value of b. Remember, b is representing the word y-intercept. Let's use the pattern y equals mx plus b. That's the one we've used before, called slope-intercept form. In our other problems, we were given the equation, and we would look here to get the slope and here to get the y-intercept. We have the reverse process. Let's fill the numbers in. So we have y equals 1x plus 2. Here is the equation of the line. Number 21, let's do that same technique. Y equals, fill in the number for m, afterwards comes the letter x, and then on the end of the problem, put the value of the b, which is minus 3. Here's an equation for a line that has this slope and this y-intercept. Okay, page 94, the written exercises. In part A, we're asked to graph a line, and in part B, we're asked to determine the equation of the line. And what we're given to work with is a point that the line goes through and its slope. When you are given a point and you are given the slope, you can graph the line. Let's do that. We need to draw a grid with enough marks on it to fit the line we want to draw. So let's take a look at where the point is and put marks. 2, 3 means we need to have 2 marks on the x-axis and 3 marks on the y-axis so that we can go over 2 and up 3 and find that dot. Now let's look at the slope value and think of it in terms of rise over run, or -1 over 1. Let's measure off a rise of -1 and a run of 1 to get another dot on the line. To do that, we need to have some more marks on our grid. Okay, starting at our dot, if the top number in the slope is -1, you go down 1 unit. The bottom number is +1, so you run to the right 1 unit. There's another dot on the line. If you want, you can repeat that. Go down 1 and over 1. Go down 1 and over 1. You'll get several dots that line up. Here is the line. For part B, we're asked to create an equation in the form ax plus by equals c. And again, what we have to work with is the point and the slope. When you know the point and slope, the equation that you can write was the point-slope equation. The formula was y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Let's fill in the numbers. Y minus, for y1, fill in 3. For m, fill in -1. For x1, fill in 2. This is an equation for the line, but it is in point-slope form. It is not in this form. We need to transform it. The form we're trying to create has no parentheses. So the first thing we need to do is the distributive property. -1 times x is -x. -1 times -2 is +2. The form that we're trying to create has the x term on the left side, not over here on the right side. So let's add x to both sides. We get x plus y minus 3 is equal to 2. The form we're trying to create has only the x term and y term on the left side, the constant numbers on the right. So let's take care of this 3 being on the wrong side. Let's add 3 to both sides. X plus y is equal to 5. Now we have our equation in the correct format that we were asked to give. Okay, number 5 has the same directions. We're given a point and the slope. From that, we can make the graph. Let's create a quick grid. X is 2 and y is -1. There's a dot on the graph. Our slope is 1/2. The top number is the rise, the bottom number is the run. So let's put a few more marks on there so that we can count our rise and run. Starting at this dot, rise 1 and run to the right 2 spots. Here's another dot on the line. Let's do that one more time. rise 1, and then run to the right 2 spots. Here's another dot on the line, and draw through the dots. That's question A. Now question B, we want to give an equation for our line. Because we are given a point and the slope, we're going to start with point-slope form. Y minus, fill in the y1, equals, fill in the m, x minus, fill in the x1. That's an equation for the line, but it's not in the format we want. We want the format ax plus by equals c, which doesn't have any parentheses. So let's do the distributive property. At the same time we're doing the distributive property, we can fix the subtracting -1 and write it as plus 1. 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times -2 is -1. In the form we're trying to create, there are no fractions. So let's multiply everything by 2 to remove the denominator. Y times 2 is 2y. 1 times 2 is positive 2. 1/2 x times 2 is just 1x. And 1 times 2 makes a -2. In the form we're trying to create, the x term is on the left side of the problem. Let's subtract x from both sides. And we'll write the result up here. We get -x plus 2y plus 2 equals -2. Next step, let's subtract the 2 so there's not a constant on the left side. We get -x plus 2y equals -4. We almost have the form we're trying to create, the ax plus by equals c form. But in that format, we're told that the value of a needs to be a positive number. Let's multiply all terms by -1 to take care of that. This changes to positive x. This changes to -2y, and this changes to positive 4. So this is the equation in the form ax plus by equals c. Number 11, let's make a graph of this. Let's make a grid to start with. The x value is 10, so we need 10 marks to the right. The y value is 4, so we need 4 marks up. Here's the dot for 10, 4. We're told that this line has no slope. That's telling us it is a vertical line. So draw perfectly up and down, crossing the x-axis at 10. There's the graph of our line. Now we want to create the equation for this line. But it's a vertical line with no slope. So its equation is the special case x equals 10. There's no y in the equation when it's a vertical line. Number 13, similar directions. Find an equation for a line, and we want it in that same format, ax plus by equals c. But this time we're given 2 points on the line, which is a little different because before we were given 1 point and the slope. Let's find the slope. To find the slope when you know 2 points, you use the slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's identify those 4 variables. In our first ordered pair is the x1 and y1. In the second ordered pair is the x2 and the y2. Okay, let's make some substitutions. y2 is 7, y1 is 4, x2 is 6, x1 is 3. This makes 3 over 3, which reduces to 1. Now we know the value of m, and we know an ordered pair. We have made question 13 be just like question 15 and question 1, where we knew the slope and we knew an ordered pair. So let's use the same technique we did before. Start with the point-slope form. y minus, fill in y1, fill in m, x minus, fill in x1. Here's our equation, but it doesn't fit the form that we're asked for, which is ax plus by equals c. So let's do the distributive property. Y minus 4 equals 1 times x is x, 1 times negative 3 is minus 3. Next, subtract x to get it on the proper side. We get negative x plus y minus 4 is equal to negative 3. Now let's add the 4 to get the constant on the right side. Negative x plus y equals 1. Finally, the form ax plus by equals c always needs to have a positive leading coefficient for x. So let's multiply everything by negative 1. X minus y equals negative 1. Here's our equation. If we were to graph this equation, it would make a line on the grid. And 2 points on that line would be 3, 4 and 6, 7. Number 25, determine an equation for a line, and we're given some information about the line. We're given its y-intercept. Remember that that's the letter B when you think about formulas. We're also told the line is parallel to the graph of y equals x. Parallel lines are sloped in exactly the same way. Parallel lines have the same slope. So what is the slope of this line here? Well, it's in slope-intercept form. It has the letter y alone. The slope is the number in front of x. So the slope of this equation is m equals 1. We're trying to write the equation of a line that's parallel to that. So our line will also have a slope of 1. We know the value of b. We know the value of m. So we should use this formula. This is called the slope-intercept formula. Fill in the value of m and fill in the value of b. Here's the equation for our line. Next, number 27. Let's make an equation, and we're given some information about a line. We're told it goes through the point 1, 3, and we're told it's parallel to the line from this equation. If it's parallel to this equation, then it will have the same slope. But what is the slope of this equation? Let's find it. Subtract 2x from both sides. We get 3y equals negative 2x plus 4. Then divide everything by 3. We get y equals negative 2 divided by 3x plus 4 divided by 3. What is the slope of this equation? It's the negative 2/3. So we know the slope of our equation that we're trying to write is negative 2/3. What else do we know about it? We know it goes through the point 1, 3. We have a point and we have a slope. We should use point-slope form. The formula for point-slope form was y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. What's y1? What's the y-coordinate of the point they give us? It's 3. What's m? It's negative 2/3. X minus, what's x1? It's 1. Here's an equation of a line that goes through this point, and it's parallel to this equation. Number 33, write the equation of a line that's parallel to the y-axis, and its x-intercept is negative 5. Let's draw a quick sketch so we can visualize this, because this is a special case. On the x-axis, here's where negative 5 is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the left. This line here is the y-axis. We have a line that's parallel to the y-axis and crosses the x-axis at negative 5. That's this vertical line. Remember that vertical lines are special cases. Their equation only has the letter x in it. And every dot on that line has an x-coordinate of -5. There's our equation. Now the review assignment, page 89. We're asked to graph a line through the points. One point is 2, 1. Let's find that. Right 2, up 1. Another point is -3, 0. Left to the -3. Now draw a line through the 2 dots. The next thing we're asked to do is determine the slope from the graph. Slope is equal to rise over run. Here's the dot that's to the left. Here's the dot furthest to the right. How much do you rise up until you're at the proper height? Just 1 unit. How much do you run sideways until you get to that dot? Count the marks along the x-axis. Start at this dot and count to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. The run is 5. Rise 1, run 5. There's our slope. Now we're asked to check that answer using the slope formula. The slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And those ordered pairs give us those 4 values. This one's x1, y1. This one's x2, y2. Let's make the substitutions. For y2, 0. For y1, 1. For x2, -3. For x1, a 2. 0 take away 1 is -1. -3 take away 2 is -5. And negative divided by negative reduces to +1/5. We can find the slope of a line from its graph, or we can find the slope of a line with the formula. Number 9 has the same directions, so let's first make the graph. 1, 2 is over 1 up to 2, and 3, 6 is over 3 and up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Draw a line through those dots. Now we're going to find the slope using rise over run. From this dot, you rise upwards until you're to the correct height. Then you run sideways. Count how many units you rise. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count how many units you run sideways. 1, 2. So the slope is up 4 over 2, which reduces to 2. Let's do this again, but with the slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. This is x1, y1, x2, y2. y2 is 6, y1 is 2, x2 is 3, x1 is 1. Now the subtractions, 4 over 2, and that reduces to 2. Next, number 17. We're asked to graph a line through the point -2, 4, and we're given its slope. Let's find -2, 4. Left to -2, and then upwards 4 units. M equals 0 is telling us that it is a horizontal line, that it doesn't rise at all. So draw a nice horizontal line crossing the y-axis at the 4th mark. Next, number 23. Do the points in the table line up in a straight line? If so, find the slope. So slope is also called rate of change. And when points line up in a straight line, the rate of change is a constant number. You always get the same rate of change between dots. So let's find how things are changing between the dots. What's happening to the x-coordinate from the first dot to the second dot? It's increasing by 2 units. What's happening to the y-coordinate? It's decreasing by 3 units. Let's make a rate or a ratio out of that. The y is changing by -3. The x is changing by +2. That's the rate of change. Let's compare the next 2 dots. From 4 to 6 is an increase of 2. From -5 to -8, it's getting smaller. It's decreasing by 3. The rate of change is negative 3 over 2. It's the same rate of change so far. Let's try one more. From 6 to 8, it increases by 2. From negative 8 to negative 11, it's decreasing by 3. If you make a rate by putting the y change on top and the x change on the bottom, you get negative 3 over 2. Do the points line up on a straight line? Did we get the same rate every time? We're going to answer this yes. And now we're going to give the slope negative 3 over 2. Next, number 29. We're given an equation and we're asked to find its slope and find its y-intercept and then graph the line. To find the slope or the y-intercept, we know that it's helpful to have slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form has this basic pattern to it. Y equals mx plus b, where the number in front of x is the slope and the constant number on the end is the y-intercept. If our equation had this pattern, we could quickly get the slope and the y-intercept, but we don't have that pattern. Let's transform it. First step, subtract 5x from both sides. We get 3y plus 6 equals negative 5x. Next step, subtract 6 from both sides. We get 3y equals negative 5x minus 6. Next step, divide by 3. We get y equals negative 5 over 3x. And then negative 6 divided by 3 makes negative 2. Now we have the pattern that will help us to get the slope. So looking in front of x, our slope is negative 5/3. Looking at the constant number, our y-intercept is negative 2. Knowing those two things about the line will help us to draw it. So let's make a grid and put a few marks in all directions. What we know about the line is the slope, how it's angled on the paper. And we know the y-intercept, where one of the dots is on the y-axis. Which should we use first to graph? How it's angled or where one of the dots is? I hope you'd say you put a dot on there first. The y-intercept is negative 2, so one dot on the line for sure is right there. Now let's use the slope, negative 5 over 3. The top number is the rise, except because it's negative, you're really going to go downward. And the bottom number is the run. We want to go down 5 in right 3. And notice I don't have enough marks on there to actually go down 5. So let me extend this and put some more marks. Okay, point at the dot. We're going to count down 5 and then right 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to run 3 units. 1, 2, 3. Here's another dot on the line. I want this to line up with the 3 on the x-axis so that I went over 3 units. Draw a line through those dots. Oops, I missed. Let's try that again. Draw a line through the dots. There we go.